Hello guys, my name is Erin and I am a Hufflepuff. My Patronus is a deerhound and my wand is a larch wood wand with dragon heartstring core, 11 3/4 inches with a slightly springy flexibility. If you haven't got the idea yet, I finally read Harry Potter. Yes. Now, I say I finally read Harry Potter. What I mean is that I have been reading Harry Potter for the past year and I finally finished it. And I know there's going to be people going, it took you a year? I read them in like a month. And I for that, I just have to say, I'm sorry, okay? I'm slow, alright? I used to be really fast. I used to be able to fly through books like there was nobody's business. But I have gotten slow. And have you seen the size of some of these? Yeah, okay, it took me a year to finish them all, so sue me. But I got there. I finished Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows last week. I only have a copy of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I borrowed the rest of the books off my friend Neve. Funnily enough, like 4 years ago, my mum bought me Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows for Christmas, and I was like, why'd you buy me this? And she was just like, well, I thought you'd like to read them. And I was like, yeah, I do want to read them, but you bought me the last one. Like, what am I supposed to do with the last one? And I tried reading it without reading the other ones, and I had no idea what was going on, and I just gave up. And it actually sat in my bookshelf for like just gathering dust for years, and I'm actually really annoyed with myself now that I've read the series and I know how good it is. It's like, how could you have left it so long, Erin? Like, this year literally marks the 20th anniversary of the publication of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. It literally took me 20 years. In my defense, I wasn't born in 1997, I was born a year later, so it still shouldn't have taken me that long. Honestly, as soon as I got back into reading, I really should have gotten these books. I should have, okay? We've cleared up that I made a huge mistake in putting off reading these books, alright? I know, I'm well aware, alright? And I wanted to make a video to talk about my experience reading the books. I'm not going to go into every single detail and plot point of the books because I was going to do a video every time I finished each book of the series and sort of do a review-y type thing. But I'm going to take my glasses off because there's a shine on them and it's annoying me. I was going to do a review for each book after I read them, but when I sort of finished each book, I was still sort of doing the reviews for episodes of Shadowhunters, so Erin Rambles would clash with the reviews for Shadowhunters, and I feel like it would all get very messy and too much, so I just decided I would do one big video at the end when I read them all, and it ended up taking me a year. So that took longer than expected, but we've already gone over that. So what did I think of these books? Well, obviously I loved them. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't. I loved these books. I loved the imagination, and I know a lot of people like sort of comment on the imagination. Everyone knows that a lot of creativity went into these books. J.K. Rowling's imagination is beyond words because every detail, every rule, every name of a spell, every name of a wand, every type of wand, every house, every person's job, it's all so creative, you know? Like everything that goes into building this magical world obviously took some sort of creativity on J.K. Rowling's part, because as far as we know, there's no such thing as Hogwarts or a magical world beneath our own. As much as we all love, I'm pretty sure hundreds of people have crashed into that wall trying to get on the King Cross station, trying to get into platform 9 3/4, and it just hasn't worked out. So yes, that's the one thing, that's one of the many things that I loved about these books. Every single book, there was a new spell or a new jinx or a new person coming into play or a new rule or a new event. Everything to do with this wizarding world, every book made it feel more vast and more real, and you immerse in it and you become obsessed with it and you want to follow the characters throughout it and you want to know that they're going to get out of whatever situation the book presents alive. Or at least unharmed. And yeah, I loved it. I love these books. Like, I didn't actually think I would. Like, when I just decided, I actually need to give a shout out I say a shout out, this YouTuber's bigger than me, but what inspired me to finally read Harry Potter was that I follow a YouTuber called The Dom. He does reviews of movie adaptations of books. And he did a Harry Potter-a-thon last year. And just listening to him talking about the movies and the books, it just kind of made me think, yeah, I want to give them a go. But I was sort of like, I'm going to give them a go, like, kind of casually. I thought, like, oh, I'm just going to read them and see what the big deal's about. And then about 3 books in, it was like, oh my god, this is so good. I need the next one immediately. I should have seen it coming, because that's actually a very common occurrence for me. But I thought that I would just be casual with these ones. And throughout the course of reading the books, I bought, like, 7 Harry Potter shirts, including this one. You've probably seen me wearing other ones throughout the videos, and I became obsessed with them. And even though it did take me a year, I do feel like I'm happy with the time it took me, because I took my time doing it. I took my time reading these books. I took my time absorbing the story and understanding what was happening, and I didn't just plow through them without really consuming anything. So I keep having the urge to say I love them, but I did. The journey that Harry goes on from the first book to the last book is amazing, and he has to go through so much with Ron and Hermione. They go through so much throughout these books, and at the end, you feel complete. Like the story's completed. You feel happy. And I don't think I'll read The Cursed Child, because I've been hearing a lot of bad stuff about it, and I don't want my experience with these books to be ruined, so I'm just going to leave that and go like, no, thank you, I'm okay with what I know. I don't want any more. To be fair, I don't mind the Fantastic Beasts series. I love that movie, and I can't wait for more of those, but I'm going to leave The Cursed Child on a shelf for a while. So I'm not just going to gush about these books, because obviously nothing's perfect. As much as I would like to pretend that Harry Potter is perfect, it did have some flaws. And by flaws, I mean minuscule things that don't really matter. Like, for example, I would say that the romance in a lot of it was very ham-fisted, but I don't have a problem with that, because it's not a romance series. It's not about falling in love. It's the same way that in the Hunger Games, the love triangle was kind of ham-fisted, because it's not really what the story is supposed to be about, and it kind of doesn't really fit in with what the characters are doing and what they're experiencing and what they're going through. So I don't mind that J.K. Rowling isn't exactly a connoisseur of writing romance. I don't think that was as big a deal. It did get a bit, like, sort of in the final few books when Harry suddenly started noticing Ginny. It just felt very, all of a sudden, and I was like, alright, okay, you want her now? Okay, that's random as hell, but alright. But I can't say that I didn't know that, because I do know. I haven't watched all the movies, but I have sort of picked up on particular things that happened. Like, I knew Harry was going to end up with Ginny. I knew about what Godric Gryffindor's sword does, because I remembered something that happened in the movie and things like that. So there were bits and pieces that kind of I remember from the movies that kind of spoiled the experience of the surprise in the books. But as I say, 20 years late, I can't really complain about that. Of course there was going to be stuff out, especially since the final movie came out. How long ago was it now? I don't even know. Was it like 5 years ago or something? The final movie came out, so I can't even... If you complain about spoilers when you're as late as I am, then you're being a tool, because honestly, it's your fault. Something as big as Harry Potter, of course there's going to be stuff out there. So there were things I knew. But yeah, I felt like the romance, I felt Ron and Hermione's, because there was kind of like little like bits and pieces throughout the books of them kind of starting to grow to like each other in that way. But it still kind of felt a bit clunky when it finally became what it was. But as I said, it's not important. It's not really part of the story. It's just a kind of side thing that happened, because they're kids. They're going to, end up dating and like having feelings for people. So it was kind of an essential part to kind of represent them as realistic teenagers, but it wasn't essential to the point that it had to be constant and such an intricate part of the story that the fact that it was kind of ham-fisted was a big issue, because it wasn't. It was just, it's not what it's about. It's about wizards and magic, obviously, because like, why would you think, oh, I can do magic, but let's focus on the romance, yeah? It's fucking magic, Another thing that bothered me, and this is spoilers I've already said about Ginny and Harry, but I don't know. As I said, 20 years late, spoilers is really just they're just out there now for Harry Potter, so I'm giving a spoiler warning anyway. Snape. What did I think of the Snape controversy? Oh, I don't know. Because the way I had perceived it was that in the books, Snape's a dickhead, obviously. He's really cruel to these kids, he's really nasty and stuff like that. That's obvious. But the way people were like saying it and the way I was hearing it was that they were kind of saying that they were trying to redeem Snape in the end by saying that all of this was because he loved Illy. Almost said Illy. He loved Lily, and he felt partially responsible for the fact that she was killed. And I thought they were trying to play it off that they just forgive him because he loved Lily, but I didn't get that vibe when Harry used is it pronounced pensive? Whatever it's pronounced, you know what I'm talking about. When Harry uses the pensive in this last book to look into Snape's memories, I didn't get the feeling that Harry was sitting going like, oh, well, he loved my mum, well, he's fine then. You know, in that moment, I didn't feel like when he came out of the pensive, I didn't feel like he was that, you know, kind of forgiving. I think he was more concerned on what he found out in the pensive, to be honest. And I thought, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's not too bad. The way people were saying it to me, I thought it was like they were like Harry was going to be like, oh my god, Snape was actually good after all. Oh, I've been so bad. Oh, he loves my mum, blah, 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 blah. But that's not how it went. That's not how it was written. So as I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's okay. That's not too bad. And then at the end, he said, you know, you're called Albus Severus because they're two of the bravest men I ever knew. We had piss on Sirius, right? I like to pretend that maybe his older son, James, is James Sirius, because if he's not, I'm gonna get fucking annoyed real quickly, because it didn't really say. I also disagree with naming children after deceased loved ones, but that's just me. Like, middle names I'm not so, you know, bothered by, but I feel like you shouldn't really name your kids after dead people, because it's like the ghost of the person always being there, unless you want that. You know what, fuck it, if you want to name someone something, go ahead. This is something I personally disagree with. But yeah, he was like, I named you Albus Severus because they're two of the most bravest people I ever knew, and I was like, not only does that sound like the dumbest name I've ever heard, but you seriously saying that Severus Snape is one of the most bravest men you knew? Sure, what he did was kind of noble, but it doesn't necessarily excuse how he's been fucking treating you throughout all these books. All the things he did to you. I know he's like trying to like big up the villain act so that you'd believe that he was part of Voldemort's army and all that stuff. Yeah, I get it, alright, I do, but that doesn't mean that he had to be as cruel as he was. He was awful. There's a difference between being nasty and being a bit mean, being a bit of a bastard of a teacher, and just being outright cruel to everyone except the people in your house. No, why would you do that? Why would you call him Albus Severus? That, not only is that shit in Dumbledore, but I didn't like it. I thought I'd go into full rant mode about the Snape thing when I was reading these books, but thankfully it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But the name thing did bother me a bit, because Sirius, your godfather, the only real father you really had for 2 years, before he was killed, remember him? What about Remus? What about anyone who showed up when you used the resurrection stone, huh? Any of them, you know? Any of them! Not Snape! Oh god. Moving on. Another controversy that I remember stemming a couple of years ago was when J.K. Rowling announced that Dumbledore was actually gay. And people had a big uproar because they said, well, why wasn't it in the books? Why did you just say? Why wasn't he showing this in the books? And you're just saying that now that the books are over so you can get like publicity. I don't know about you, but I can't think of any situation throughout the Harry Potter series where Dumbledore could naturally slip in his sexuality. And for one thing, his sexuality shouldn't matter. People don't announce in books that they're straight. People don't announce like their sexuality just so people know. I know I don't. I've talked about this before in videos. And I don't know whether this is because I knew about it because of J.K. Rowling announcing it, but I got gay vibes. And I'm not talking about Dumbledore himself, the way he behaved. I don't mean that. I mean, when you find out about him and Grindelwald, they were inseparable for 2 months, sending night owls to each other with messages, practicing magic, planning to take over the world together. Come on. That's about as close as we were going to get in the books. I mean, as I say, I don't know if this is because I was aware of it. I don't know if it was because I knew from J.K. Rowling announcing it. I don't know if it was more obvious to me because I knew beforehand. But honestly, I'm not that bothered. I do not like characters that kind of introduce themselves as gay. Bill in Doctor Who really pissed me off the amount of times they felt the need she had to mention it. So I'm not bothered by that. I actually like it, the fact that Dumbledore is gay and it's not made a big deal out of. Because honestly, if it had been made a big deal out of, that would have been so, as I say, ham-fisted. Like, why would you do that? That's not how we act. We don't announce ourselves as who we are. And I feel like the little sort of excerpt talking about his past with Grindelwald was enough. And I think she did mention that Dumbledore did have something with Grindelwald. I may be remembering wrong, but I feel like that's what that was. That was her way of doing it, so I don't believe she deserves the backlash that she got for that. So, but they're the only problems I really had with it. Of course, there were, like, plot things that I bother with, but there were, like, things that they were supposed to annoy you, like Umbridge and Snape and just Voldemort in general, because, you know, it's Voldemort. Just the things like that in general that are supposed to annoy you, that are supposed to get you passionate and riled up and angry. That's the kind of things that kind of got me, like, riled up. Because they were supposed to. Draco. I need to take a minute to talk about Draco. Draco, people kind of, I don't know the right way of putting it, people kind of, they make excuses for him. Like, oh, he was forced. Oh, he didn't really mean it. Oh, he's a good guy on the inside. Yeah, he may end up being a good guy when he was older, but he was a grade A bully for, like, the first few books before any dark shit even started happening. And I will admit, he was probably pressured into his allegiance with Voldemort because of his parents. I actually did feel guilty for Draco. I did feel bad for Draco in the last few books when what he was being forced to do was starting to take a toll on him. But throughout the books, that doesn't take away the fact that he was racist towards Hermione, for one thing. He called her mudblood. That's their equivalent of racism. So not only was he racist, but he was cruel and he bullied people, and you know, you can't excuse people's behaviour for that because Voldemort hadn't even risen yet. Voldemort didn't rise until Goblet of Fire. So you can't say that he was being forced into an allegiance with Voldemort at that point. He was just a dick. And I'm not going to suddenly, like, be like, oh, well, you know, Draco's a nice guy on the inside because he would end up being forced to do things for Voldemort. It was awful that he was being forced to do things for Voldemort. Absolutely abhorrent that a child should be forced to do that kind of thing. But I'm not going to excuse his past behaviours that he never apologised for just to justify his character. I hate it when people try to justify villains. I hate it when people... You can like villains. I've said this before, you can enjoy villains, but you have to admit that they're villains. You can't try and excuse their behaviour because then they're not villains, and it takes away their entire point of being a villain. So Draco represented the kind of childish bullying character for the first few books, and that's, I mean, as I say, he used racist terms, and he was just a dick, and I just don't feel like, feel the need to excuse his behaviour just because of what happens to him later in the series. Sure, he might grow up to be a decent guy, but there was never any apology that I can recall for how he treated anyone, anywhere. So, yeah, no. No go on the Draco love for me. And people actually ship Draco and Hermione, and, like, he literally called her Mudblood. Ships are weird. Before I wrap up, I might make a part 2 video, because who knows, I might start thinking of more things that I want to talk about, because there's like 7 books, people. Like, there's no way I was going to be able to cover all this in one video. I'm sure there's going to be more stuff that I'll end up wanting to talk about, so I'll make another video, part 2, maybe eventually sometime in the future, if I ever come up with more, like, things I want to talk about. I might talk about character arcs and redemption arcs and things like that in the next video, because one thing, the wee mini saga of Neville Longbottom is just amazing. Neville is one of my favourite characters just because of his character arc and his story and his development. So I might want to talk about, like, characters and, like, developments and arcs, like, in a different video. But I'm going to list off some of my favourite characters from the series because, you know, why the fuck not? Because I love them. So, Neville, obviously, his arc was just amazing. Luna, because I just love Luna. She's adorable, you know? I loved Remus and Tonks. Yeah, I know. Why does J.K. Rowling hurt us like this? I love the twins. Again, Fred and George. Why does J.K. Rowling like to hurt us like this? I love Professor McGonagall. In my head, I can see her as Maggie Smith. It was Maggie Smith who played her in the movies, wasn't it? And I think that Maggie Smith just did such a good job portraying her. Even I knew when I was reading the books, I was like, oh god, Maggie Smith was a perfect choice. Who else was there? Loved Hagrid. Hagrid is just adorable. I love him. I just think he's adorable. I loved Cedric Diggory. I really liked Cedric Diggory. Why did all the characters that I like, Why do you do this to me, JK? Oh, JK trolling. Oh. But yes, they're my favourite characters. There are probably way more I could probably list off, but they are my mains. So, I will see you in the next video, guys. There will be a part 2. I'm not even going to say probably. There will be a part 2 to this video. So, I'll see you then, guys. And remember, Hufflepuff Pride. Are there any Hufflepuffs up in here? Because Hufflepuff Pride, we don't get enough. We're getting it now that Newt Scamander is in Hufflepuff, which is just fantastic. But yes, any Hufflepuffs up in here? If not, no. Tell me your house anyway. Tell me what house you're in. Tell me what your Patronus is. Tell me what... I'm going all fangirl here, but tell me what your house Patronus and wand is down in the comments below. And I'll see you next time, guys. And remember, Hufflepuff Pride, yes.